Hello everyone, welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Hopefully my soul family is doing well today. My goodness, I'm so sorry I haven't had a chance to put out a lot of videos because I have been working pretty much close to 40 hours now instead of 30. So it's taken me some time to get these webinars done. Today we're going to do Alex Collier's webinar 175 from January 27th of 2023. I've got a kitty cat in here. This is Bandit. This is Bandit. He's my diabetic kitty that I have to give insulin shots to twice a day. He's a baby. He's about 11 or 12. Yeah. You want up here on the window? Here, go sit in the window. Okay. So we might have some noise. Here, do you want some treats? Here, want treats? Here, I'm gonna put them down here. Okay. Well, how is everybody? My goodness. Lots of solar activity going on. Lots of viral things going around with people. I know I've talked about the chemtrails detoxing people, and a lot of people are still feeling like, oh, but we can't be detoxing. How do we feel so awful after they spray? The problem is, if you've ever detoxed on something, you know that you feel awful afterwards. Like you literally feel like you have the flu, you get the chills. It's just like having the flu. I mean, it's really bad. Your body shakes. Every bit of you just feels awful. So, yeah, we can definitely be detoxing from the amount of chemtrails, and there's been a lot of them lately. So I where I work, I've had a lot of people come in, like we're completely out of cold medicine, flu medicine, ibuprofen for kids especially, all that stuff. The throat lozenges, everything has to do with in the head and the sinuses and the lymph nodes. Like I even have had like when I went to the doctors a few weeks ago, you could hear the conversations in the next room with like people that also had lymph node problems going on. So I've been doing a lot of research and seeing how to cleanse those lymph nodes because they go from behind your ear, which is where it hurts, all the way down underneath your jawbone, which is all the problems I've been having. So there's dry brushing. There's a lady on YouTube. She shows how to like literally like go through and like massage them so that you get the drainage and it comes all out and cleanses it. And I've been using a little bit of frankincense or tea tree oil with peppermint and lavender. And they said usually you rub that into there as well will help drain them. So a lot of people have been having all this problem in their head, their sinuses, their lymph nodes, and things like that going on. So we're detoxing. And so there's been a lot of things going around Telegram about the chemtrails, really as HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, that's helping decalcify our pineal gland, and how like, of course, that's going to help everyone awaken. And we've seen a little bit about a lot of people are starting to wake up finally, and they're starting to see the light. They're starting to see reality. So that could very well be a possibility, along with the solar flares helping us as well. So anyway, I just thought I would mention that to y'all. Thank you so much, any new subscribers, for subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate it. You are my soul family. You found me for a reason, right? Okay, so today we'll just get into it. So Alex Collier's webinar from number 175 from January 27th of 2023. He says, "Hi everyone. I apologize for the picture." He says, "I'm on my 17-year-old laptop because the rest of my shit won't work." He says, "Go figure." He says, "It worked yesterday. So if I'm being meddled with, they forgot about this one." He says, "I hope you're well." He says, "If you're new, hang on. I'll just explain some things as we go through the webinar. For the regulars and those who pretty much are up to speed or ahead of the game," he says, "we're in the storm." He says, "It's obvious we're in the storm. You can see all the pieces of all the components." He says, "You're beginning to see the deep state takedown, and there are just some extraordinary things happening. And the important thing to remember is that this is a game of chess, and there's no failure points. It just has to play itself out. So if you keep that in mind and do not buy into the doom and gloom, media hype on Telegram," he says, "all these, it's the end of the world. What are we going to do?" He says, "I'm still hearing there's draconian bases in the Atlantic Ocean." He says, "There's not. But whatever people are doing," he says, "that kind of information is years old." He says, "Just stay in the moment, okay?" He says, "We're going to get through this, and I want to give a hats off to Space Force. If you guys are on the chat, say hi, because they're listening, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude for what they do and how they are working to protect the surface, the underground, as well as the sky." He says, "They and Solar Warden, so give them a big shout of hello." He says, "Okay, guys and gals, we appreciate you more than you know, and we're going to be stepping up." He says, "We are. People are getting it. It's taken a while, but people are really starting to get it, and I know it's about time, right?" He says, "Okay, listen, there's a lot of things to talk about." And he laughs. "If you're following the financial system, then you know that the dollar, the Federal Reserve note, which is a rented currency, is going away. And we're seeing the takedown of it, the destruction of it, and all the contracts and everything that it represented. Now, for those of you who are brand new, I'm just going to say this real quick and once. This was a debt instrument from the beginning to the end. It was created out of nothing, and it was loaned to us without interest. And if you borrowed $100, you would owe 102 or 106 back. However, the interest, the 102 and 106 was never printed. So no matter how much they loaned you, the interest didn't exist, which kept everyone constantly borrowing and in debt in perpetuity, because the interest could never be paid because it was never created. And also the fact that all of us have a trust with money. And back around, I believe it was 1913, they basically stepped in, and instead of us controlling our own money in our trust, they basically took over all of our trusts. Every single person on this planet that has a social security number and a birth certificate, they took it over. So every time you go for a mortgage, a car loan, a credit card, any type of loan to ask for money, when you sign that contract with your name, you are giving them permission to draw from your trust. Okay. So these banks never had any money. And the only reason they got rich was because we were actually paying back money to them that was never theirs with interest. Okay. If people realize that, and once it does come out in the open, people are going to be pissed. I mean, pissed, because some people have lost everything. They've lost their homes. They've lost jobs. They've lost, their cars have been repoed. I mean, we're right now in a time where a lot of people are really in financial struggle right now. So, when people find this out, it's just going to be devastating. Okay. And they're going to be pissed. So it was your money to begin with. They took control of it. Okay, we have the money all along. They never did. And then for them to come and go, oh, well, since you're not making payments, we're going to take your home, or we're going to take your car, or we're going to garnish your wages, even though we never had a contract with you. That's how the system worked. Says, so that's why it has to go. He says, it's made debt slaves of all of us, every individual, every country, every corporation. So bid it farewell. And we'll move on to the next thing. And if you don't know what that is, there's many people here on this chat who can clue you in. The quantum financial system, etc., asset-backed currency systems, which represent new currencies. Countries are going back to creating their own central banks. It's a very involved story, but it is one personally researching worth personally researching yourself so that you actually know about it. So when you have to talk to your children about it, or your friends, your neighbors, your siblings, you can speak eloquently about it because many of them don't have a clue. And when this shit goes down, they're going to be like, what the hell's happening? Okay, and you're just not going to get it from the mainstream media. Just not going to happen unless Space Force and the White Hat military do their thing. But we don't know when that's going to be, okay? We're in a war. That's the biggest issue, and I don't understand. That's my philosophy, like why. I mean, I kind of get it, but then I don't. Like, that would be the biggest thing to take down first would be the media, because they're lying, and people are still believing this crap, you know? I work with somebody who thinks Biden's like one of the best presidents, and he doesn't understand why people are saying bad things about him and all this other crap, and they believe the CV19 story and all that shit. Like, I just, it just infuriates me. I don't say anything. I'm just an observer. Anyway, he says Derek Johnson on Before It's News did a Derek Johnson stream January 26th at Trump, the little @ at Trump. So if you type that in fact, he's on a rant. He says it's good though. It's great to see him as frustrated as many of us have been for years because he's having to repeat himself over and over and over again. He says, and I get that. I so get that, he says. But it's absolutely worth the listen. I think it's about an hour and a half. I think the one I pulled up was about 3 hours. So I didn't have time to watch it all. He says, but it's good stuff. It explains a lot of what's going on in the background and why it is what it is. Okay. He says, so here in the United States, North America, we've had 5 pipelines shut down. There has been a federal emergency in 8 states, and it is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Major gas diesel shortages, he says. So they declared a federal emergency, and it's Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. Now the story is, over a month ago, the Suncor refinery here in Colorado mysteriously was shut down. He said they said there was an explosion, but it's being investigated as suspicious. He says, now what's really interesting is because of that, there's a shortage of fuel and there's no way to make it up. He says, well, you see, this is all contrived. Ladies and gentlemen, there are gas and oil refineries all over Wyoming, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas. It says Texas has tons of them. New Mexico has several, but what we're not being told is that these are being shut down because there's no oil. 5 pipelines have been shut down going from Canada into the United States. See, this was all a part of the Great Reset by the Dark Hats. We're just going to starve you out. We're just going to make you sick. We're going to control everything you do. And you will not be allowed to travel. And if you do travel, you're going to need a vax passport. And you will get as many, as we want. Because if you don't, then we'll cut off your food card, your gas card, utility card, everything. I'm surprised they have not shut off Medicare, Medicaid, people on Social Security, disability, everyone with food stamps. There's a lot around here. And let me tell you, there would be an uprising the moment they would cut those off. So I'm surprised they haven't done that yet. And then what they were going to do is, using the Federal Reserve System, is declare everybody bankrupt. And then they were going to forgive your debts, but you would have to relinquish all your rights and your private property. And what they were going to do, in their benevolence, is rent it back to you, all of your own stuff. He says, you see, that's how these people think. That's who these people are. At the same time, poisoning the food chain, poisoning the air, poisoning the water, and poisoning your physical bodies. So now that you have a clear picture of the one side, the benevolent side is what we're going to focus on today. And because you really haven't seen their face yet. And there's a reason for that. And it's not that they're being dark or they're sinister. It's that they've had to remain hidden. They've had to work in the background in order to expose the dark cats, the rhinos, the woke crowd, the military industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, the cabal, the deep state. It was necessary for everyone to see who they are and what they're about and what they really only care about, which has nothing to do with humanity, with the exception of being able to feed off of us in order to make themselves more wealthier and rich. Bastards. Bastards. I have to go to some of my old notes here. He says, I want you to understand that in order to give you the big picture, especially our history, it's not possible for just one person to do it, which is why we have been blessed with so many historians in the world. Graham Hancock, Michael Tsarian, Tellinger, Dr. Michael Sala, Elena Danan, Dan Willis, Dan Winter, and so many others that I cannot think of off the top of my head remember. Even some of the founders that have introduced the historical pieces to us, and even then, they've only scratched the surface. So colonies have existed on the earth. We call them civilizations, but they were actually just colonies. The earliest ones 18 million years ago, and they were humanoid. They came from another galaxy, and we will be discovering, or that information will be shared with us regarding who they were and what they left behind. Now, there's a great deal of conversations and interest in Tartaria, the Tartans. The Tartans were a very old race. They were obviously giants. If you look at the buildings and structures they left behind, some of them were the survivors of the Lemurian and Atlantean wars. Some of them, mostly the males, grew to be about 27 feet tall. That's how big they were, which is why you look at these buildings and you look at the doors. It would make sense. Why would someone 6 foot, 5'11", or even 6'5" build something or build a door 20 foot high or ceilings 40 feet high? There's no reason to do such a thing, not to mention the fact that based on the technology we did have, it would have been an impossibility. This is why when you're looking at structures of ancient buildings and there are multiple floors beneath it, that's because of the flood. The last great flood, which was approximately 9,000 years ago, give or take 200 years. So that's how far the last pole shift was, and that's why you have sand and mud everywhere, because the oceans left their beds, which we're seeing this in parts of Italy and Venice, like the canals are drying up, and a lot of places around the world, these waterways are drying up. Something's definitely happening. I don't know whether we're tilting to, or we're actually having this pole shift and everything is shifting and we're slowly changing. No, you can't stand on that. Oh, bandit. Okay. This is because the oceans left their beds and then resettled back in, leaving debris everywhere. That's why we have seashells here in the Rockies at 10, 12, 13,000 feet, which is scary. So what's also important to note is that this entire time, star nations have been traveling through our solar system. They've been coming through. Maybe they would stop, do a logistical search. Maybe they would do some mapping to check the planets, the moons. Hey, our star, our sun, says its proximity to see if there were any changes to our solar system, etc. And then they would just leave. They would just do logistics. This is very, very common, and this still happens today because what they're doing is they're updating their maps. Their holographic maps, their star charts for space travel. Because things change, you know, nothing remains the same. Every time you go into the woods on a hike with your animals or by yourself, the forest is never the same, even if it's the next day. Something has changed. That's just the nature of Source. Since humanity has been here, since humanity, as we know ourselves, have been on the planet, there have been boots on the ground. Monitoring, watching, assessing, not only ourselves, but our effect on the ecosystem of the planet. Because you have to remember, a spacefaring nation is made up of scientists and astrophysicists, as we call them, quantum physicists, terranologists, earthologists. He says people learned, hey, in the technique of ecosystems, how each planet will create its own ecosystem, and then how life then can not only be seeded, but at sometimes they will alter their own physical form to adapt to a specific environment and evolve on their own. Oh, lay down, buddy. Sorry, guys, he's pawing at his treat bag. Baby. Life, DNA, is the coin of the realm. It isn't paper with pictures on it. It isn't gold and it isn't silver. It's life. And that's what gets everybody excited. We will learn to understand that once we become a spacefaring civilization ourselves. Now, in some respects, we are. That would be the Solar Warden and other programs that we haven't been told about. However, they have had to be pushed back and brought back to Earth, to our solar system, because there was no genuine reason to break away from the planet. They had not done everything they could to not only fix the situation here, but to help their own people. So it was necessary for them to come back and regroup, to reassess what it is that they're doing. Now, because of the original intent in creating these space programs, they picked up some very, very bad habits. And one of those bad habits was being predatory. Now, there's been some of that in the galaxy. Obviously, the Orion Empire, the Orion Group, some of the reptilian groups, some of the Greys, some of the rogue, renegade, offshoot star nations that have screwed up everywhere else they've been. So they just keep moving on and using planets, their resources, and then moving on, etc., leaving destruction in their wake. There's been some of that, no question about it. In other galaxies, this is still an issue, okay? But that has come to an end here, and it is coming to an end here. And it doesn't matter what the reasons were for everybody suddenly realigning to end this, to take a stand. Now, the thing about non-intervention and having a position of light, it has two sides to it. Number one is very idealistic. Leave them alone and see where they evolve all on their own. There is some absolute precedence
to doing that. However, if you're not monitoring that race and someone else steps in and intervenes in a negative way, then you will never fully see what their own potential could have taken them to or where they could have ascended to, because now they've been altered. That's the case with Earth and other civilizations in our galaxy. It reached a critical point several years ago when technology was used. For example, time travel, the Montauk chair, other technologies that are currently being protected and guarded in Antarctica. Technologies that were discovered not only in Egypt, but also in South America. There was half a device found in South Africa, but they couldn't use it. This technology opened portals, and when I'm talking about portals, it literally created, not that we understood it at the time, but what it did is it created multiple timelines or different timelines. Bandit, if you are proceeding and moving in a direction as a civilization, and you are moving and you are proceeding with full intent, and you are moving in a direction of enlightenment and for the benefit of your race and for the benefit of all life, if you are moving in that direction because that's your intent, is to honor and worship all life and to hold it in respect, it is not necessary to create multiple timelines. Only if you want to screw with something would you do so. Would you create these multiple timelines? Now, once you realize you created another timeline, and that timeline was a virtual copy or mirror of your present timeline, and you figured out a way how to hop back and forth, you could screw around on this particular timeline, and then you could do all kinds of things and see where it would go. Well, if you were going to screw that up and you didn't know how to get out of it and didn't know how to turn that off, would you jump back to A? Common sense says you would. And then what would you do is that you would end that device, make sure that it couldn't be used. But that's not what they did. That is not at all what they did. What they did is they went out and created other multiple timelines. And then what they tried to do was to take natural resources, human resources, from the other multiple timelines and bring them back to timeline A. This caused a lot of problems. And what happened was they became infected with greed, with power, with having this technology. They literally saw themselves as gods. Now, I'm not talking about extraterrestrials here. I'm talking about humanity. They saw themselves as gods, and they started acting as if they were gods. And in order to remain gods, in order to maintain control and to manipulate humanity, they put in place all these systems in the Matrix. They put all these things in place so that we would never ever know or see our way out of it. In fact, we wouldn't even conceive a way out of it because we would not recognize that we were in this trap in this box. If you ever watch the series Dark, it's a German show. You can get it probably on, I don't know if it's on Hulu. They had it on several other platforms, but Dark, if you watch 1899, it's by the same producers. Dark deals with different multiple timelines, and it deals with past, present, future all at the same time. And it's a really good show. So, and they, these people jump around in different timelines and they create different scenarios and they change things. So, truth is out there in these shows, isn't it? He says, now when benevolence stepped in and started shutting down the timelines, the dark side knew. They realized they were in a lot of trouble. So because they believed themselves to be gods and to have dominion and ownership of Earth, timeline A, they went into at all cost modes. Now I have shared with you for 30 plus years, as others have, is that we are genetic royalty. And what makes us genetic royalty is, in fact, our DNA, the physicality of us. It has genes of at least 22 different races. Elena Denen's people say now 24. I'm not all surprised by that, but nonetheless, we are genetic royalty. We have the capability to literally do anything. Anything. The CV19 was created to give you a treatment. The treatment wasn't created because of CV19, and I like the way he said this because it makes a lot more sense this way. Wasn't created to cure it. It was created to be what they were doing to us. The decision was made a while ago when they realized they were losing ground and there was nothing they could do. When the last of the regressives left the earth or were taken out, they realized they were completely on their own. Now, the good news is they were all pretty much all fucking idiots. He says, okay? There wasn't any genuine leadership there at all. They were used to following orders, and the people they had working for them down the line were people who could be easily compromised, who were compromised, and who would follow orders because they were being blackmailed, threatened. He says, you name it, you name it. People that really didn't have a spine. So as long as they followed orders, they would get rich, they would have prominence in their countries, they would have honors. But of course, many of them, not all, but many of them were absolutely rotten to the core, did unspeakable things. The treatment significantly, the mRNA creates a third strand. It creates a third strand of DNA, not your third strand. He says, not your sleeping third strand of DNA. It creates a new strand in between your two strands now. He says, this alters who we are. Now, on the earth, if someone does this to another or to any living thing on this planet and alters its DNA, whoever holds the patent on that technology now has rights to that physical being. This is why they've been pushing and pushing and pushing to have everybody take this thing so that they could own us, literally own us, at least on the planet. Now, we're not talking the soul. However, that's an entirely other issue. And that is because many people who get this, they change, they're altered. There's something that's missing from them. Some very early people said, I can no longer feel spirit. I can no longer feel God. And as the weeks and months go by, they tend to lose empathy for anything, especially themselves. They just lose empathy, become detached, and that's because of the intent of this entire dark plan. And if you've watched my videos before, I've talked about my good friend who was fully, and she had a stroke at the wheel, driving, and she had a major car accident. She could have killed herself. She ended up, her dog with her died. And she had to learn to walk again and talk again. And this was last year about this time. And I talked to her back in October, and I didn't feel like it was quite her. I didn't feel like she was really, the emotions weren't there, like normally. So I don't know whether it's the prescriptions maybe she's on, or I just felt like it's just a piece of her is missing. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. I need to go visit her soon and we'll find out. But I'm not sure she's even fully awake yet. He says, this is going to be coming out. This is going to be shared with you. And it's important that you know this because we're going to lose people. I do know if the holistic beds, we'll just say that, are going to be out as quickly as they say. I do not know if they're going to be out as quickly as they say. I don't know if they have enough to fix everyone that's had this thing, the treatment. I simply don't know. I do not know if the military version is the same as the Star Nations that they have currently on their ships, which are their ships. Their whole ship is like a healing technology, apparently. I don't know if those ships would work in our third density physicality. I simply don't know that. But either way, we've already lost some and we're going to be losing a few more. This can never, ever, ever be allowed to occur ever again. Not on this planet, not anywhere else in this galaxy. And right now, that's where we have to start, okay? We have to start on our own planet, our own solar system, and in our own galaxy, okay? That's our background. We as a race, we have to look at these events. We have to fully understand these events and come to a place, ladies and gentlemen, where we just drop all the programming, all the nonsense, all of the racial biases, all the prejudices, everything that we've been taught. And we have to come to a place of total recognition that we are brothers and sisters, that we are humanity, we are Terrans. This is the only planet we have, and we've got to come to a place where we understand and live with each other, that we go above and beyond the call of duty to communicate with each other, that whether we agree or disagree, we will defend each other physically, spiritually, because that's the only way we're going to be free. There are no half measures here anymore. This is all or nothing. The Alliance, the Star Nations that are here helping us, they are not going to tolerate us doing or having the same behavior. This evolution, this awakening of humanity has got to be organic. It has to come from us. We're being given this opportunity to see what the truth is, to see what is real by Space Force, by the Alliance, by the Galactic Federation. They are giving us the opportunity to see what's real and what isn't. And that should be pretty easy when you step out of the drama and you look at the contrast. And there's a lot of drama right now, a lot of fear. You know, it's really interesting how those who are promoting all this fear, all this negativity, are now trying to portray themselves as truthers. And everyone who's like, hey, here's the truth. This is what it is. And it isn't dire. It's changing. It's evolution. We have got to let the old system go. And we're hopiums? He says, you know, we're just pushing hopium. And he laughs. He says, know them by their deeds. Know them by their deeds. Absolutely. I don't consider myself a truther. Like, I don't really put out that information. I speak my intuition, and I do like Alex's information. That's why I'm bringing that to everybody here. So, don't consider myself that. I just want my humanity to know information, right? There isn't going to be a nuclear war. Absolutely not. I don't feel that. I've never felt that. Take it off the table. It's all hype. It's all talk. It's all fear, fear, fear. Number one, to see if you will continue to give up your power and your rights to give them away, or if you're going to stand strong and say, we do not allow this to happen. We don't want this to happen. It says, and because we're the people, and you're going to stand down. And that's what this is about. That's what the organic evolution awakening of humanity is about. It's about us. Us. It isn't about the governments. It says, you know, if it were up to me, I would I would fire all of them today. 2 hours, they'd all have their pink slips, and I'd tell them to go home. Because look at what they've done. Look at what they've done to us, to the planet. There hasn't been a true benevolent one anywhere. Anywhere. They've all done things to hurt their people because they were coerced. They didn't stand against it and say, fuck you. They did not. And we have to look at that. Seriously, we have to look at that. Yeah, it's going to be, we're the ones we've been waiting for. Everybody's sitting around waiting for the military to step in. And I'm telling you, it's taking so long because people need to get on the street, like Brazil, like Europe. Uh, Other countries are looking at us like, you guys have arms, you have guns. What are you doing? Why aren't you like taking them out? Okay, and I know a lot of people are going to be, but they didn't want a civil war. The alliance doesn't want a civil war, blah, 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 blah. It's up to the people. Okay, if you don't want to use your guns, that's fine. Protect yourself. Okay, we have to take to the streets and protest online as much as you can. Go into their offices physically, pull them out. Pull them out. What they do in the old days, that's what they did. They literally went to these offices and they pulled their officials out and they took them in the street and they tar and feathered them. That's what they did. Or they hung them. So it's up to the people. You put them in there in that office, and maybe not, well, a lot of elections are rigged, but somehow when they got in there, if we don't want them, go in there and pull them out. Pull them out. Military will back the people. Okay? They work for us too. We pay their wages as well. Okay. He says, now, if we were protecting each other, we would all see that. We would all realize that we've got an issue here. We have professional governments with professional politicians that get elected by whatever we want to hear. And when they get into office, they're compromised. And when they leave office, they're multimillionaires. Every single one of them. Says, and they make these terrible decisions. They pass all these laws, literally outlining everyday life for us. And then they kick the can down the road, kick the can down the road, and kick the can down the road. And we're left with this pile of shit. He says, this massive pile of shit. And we don't know how it's got this bad because we as a race, as a human civilization, have not been paying attention. We have not paid attention to our future. We have been living in the moment, focusing on what it is that we can get. What can we do? What can we get? What can we acquire? We have not been paying attention to what they've been doing and setting us up for. And here we are, the entire world is bankrupt. Pollution is an issue, fresh water is an issue, the air is an issue. Chemtrails is a huge issue, okay? It's contaminated everything. And had we been paying attention and had we been sticking together, the probability is none of this would have happened in the first place. We would have shut it down but we didn't. We kept abdicating our power to them. We can't do this anymore. This has to be us. Now, every government on this planet, I'm sure I'm going to get some shrills, he says, is incompetent. It's incompetent. It's dysfunctional. It isn't working at all. We have to fix it. We have to fix it. We, the people, because we have common sense and we understand what it takes every single day to scratch a living, to take care of our kids, try and protect our kids as best as we can. We get it because we're the ones holding this entire shit structure up. It's all on us. They built all this on our own shoulders. But because we weren't paying attention, now we're looking at it going, oh my God, what the hell have they done? Do you know that there are schools in this country, elementary schools, high schools, colleges, and universities that are broadcasting frequencies in these schools, in these dorms, to alter our children's perspective from biological reality to a transgender reality? We're going to be talking more about that in the next webinar. They're actually doing this to our kids. The science is there. This has become a real issue right here in Boulder, Colorado, where this is happening, unbeknownst to the children and the parents. Just some teachers know, and obviously the curriculum, the staff, the administration staff, the schools know, and this is an agenda. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because we have to take this all down. It all has to come down. Now, with our own innate wisdom and common sense, we know how to fix it. It's just going to take a lot of work, and it may take several generations to get it. But the goal here, ladies and gentlemen, is to become an integrated civilization. Integrated, not broken, not separate, but no matter where you are on this planet, you are part of an integrated civilization. You have human rights, you have respect, you have dignity. You will not starve, you will not be treated any other way than as a human being. Because the only way we can move into a Star Trek civilization is to be an integrated civilization ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean we give up our cultures. In fact, we need to be more open to our history and the indigenous cultures we have. We need to do more to recognize them for who they are and what they brought to the table, what they brought to civilization. We owe them a debt because they've given us a history. We don't plow it over and erase it. No, no, no. They had a wisdom in how to live with the earth. That humanity today has completely lost. And I think that that's part of the hope, one of the prophecies, indigenous prophecies, is that the people will come back to the indigenous ways. Like, we will look to them for help and knowledge as far as living with the earth and the holistic remedies and things like that. It's coming. It's coming, and I'm so excited. He says we need that knowledge. We need that wisdom. We need to integrate that into our present day cultures to give it more depth. Right now, we don't have depth. We really don't. We really don't, which is the problem. People fall apart the minute anything happens because they have no depth. Ask a kid where a carton of milk comes from. He's going to say the grocery store. They don't know it comes from a cow. They've never seen a cow milked or a goat milked. There's just so many things they don't know. They have no concept of the process of life. And that's because we've been so busy trying to support them and raise a family that we haven't paid attention to what the educational system was teaching them. And ladies and gentlemen, the education system on this planet, even in China, although people like to spout it, even in China has been working against everybody. It's been working against humanity. We are now in the process where there's going to be more and more disclosures, and there's going to get bigger and bigger, and they're just going to get bigger and bigger. For those of us who have been paying attention, we get that. We've been waiting for it. Yes, we've been waiting for it. But our jobs now, because we're awake, are to help those that are now waking up. You can't just look at them and say, where have you been? We can't do that. We can't say I told you so as much as we want to either. Right? We have to help. We have to encourage them to do some research for themselves, to look it up, to investigate their time into researching it, to know that it's real. And there's been a lot, like I said, of people you see going around TikTok, on Telegram, stuff like that, that people are finally getting it. Like, things are clicking and they're waking up and they're like, oh my gosh, and they're crying and they're overwhelmed. And they're just like, I don't know how you that have been awake for so long, how you're dealing with it. Like, I feel for them. I do. I mean, I'm an empath anyway, but we all are. But I do feel for them, and I just want to give them hugs. That's me, hugs, hugs. Yeah, I feel bad that they're getting it literally all at once. That's a lot. It's a lot to digest. He says now one of the big ones is going to be the financial system. Is the shifting from the fiat currency, debt-laden system that we've all been living under for 4 generations, almost 5, to a quantum system, asset-backed. Now, you'd think that would be a big deal for a lot of people, and it is. Most people have no idea how to handle change. Not something like this. It is because of like this, and because of the massive distrust that everybody's going to have, if they don't have it already, of the system, we have to be able to explain this to them. The differences between the two systems, which means all of us have to do some additional work in studying on the new quantum system. We really have to try to know it. Now, granted, we haven't been to the banks yet. It hasn't been to the banks yet. It hasn't been explained to us, and we haven't been using it ourselves. But a good place to start is to exactly know what it is that what we are leaving behind and why, and what the energy of that old system not only represents, but what it created here on the planet. That's important to know. It isn't just paper and ink, it's what they did. It was the intent behind what they did that was to enslave humanity, to enslave children, to enslave young adults, organ harvesting, everything else that went with it, wars, to depopulate certain areas of the planet, to destroy cities and cultures so that they can make more money coming in and rebuilding it. Bastards. Bastards. That was the only intent. Whenever they felt that the consciousness of one particular nation was starting to jump and was going to make a change, they would bring a war to that country to suppress it and to kill its young people, to wound it, to put it into trauma. They were doing this shit intentionally to us. Now, because they were so successful into dividing us, many didn't see it. But had we not allowed ourselves to be divided, had we not been bought into us against them, we would have seen this. Because if you wound me, you're also wounding them. If you wound them, you're also wounding us because we stand together. Because we are one civilization, the Terran race, humanity, the human race. We have got to think this way going forward. The White Hats, the Alliance, Space Force, boots on the ground, there's no way they can do it all. Many of them aren't even cut out to take us to the next level. That's not their training. It's not what they've been trained to do. However, we can do this. We need to fill the gaps. We need to fill the voids that are being created as we speak. As we speak. And ladies and gentlemen, we just need to volunteer to do it. We just do. Wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from poor judgment. We've all learned those lessons. We have. We've learned some things, and we need to step up, and we need to share and apply that knowledge, that wisdom that we have learned about what works and what doesn't work, so we can push it forward. Starts now because we're in the storm, okay? We are in the storm. We are definitely in the storm. You're not going to see it on CNN. You're not going to hear it on MSNBC tell you. It's not who they are. They've never been. They have always been the opposition. They've always been the opposition. Just turn them off. Turn them off. And I realize there are a lot of people still listening. But you know what? The numbers are changing. The consciousness is shifting. It is, in fact, moving. And you ought to know this because they're dropping the hammers as we speak. That means the tide has shifted, as 107 has said. It has shifted. We're there. We're at this place where people are open-minded enough that people are beginning to see the things, see the dominoes, see the contrast between the light and the dark. And I share this with you because I have a good idea about who you guys are. You have kids, you have grandchildren, you have great-grandchildren. We're parents. When you realize that what these people were going to do to us and our children between now and 2030 and 2050, how they were going to eliminate 500 million people, the majority which were going to be Chinese and Japanese, there's no way we stand by and do nothing. It's impossible to do something like that. It has to be us. We have to step up, and the time is now to start doing this. And you can only start locally. And it doesn't matter where you are on this planet, it doesn't matter. Every country has its issues right now. Everyone's countries are dysfunctional. Just look at the United States. We have all this technology, this remarkable technology that we can't see, can't use, because we're spiritually bankrupt for the most part. We're broken. The United States, the spirit of America, is broken at the moment. And the only ones who can fix that is ourselves. We have to get right with Source, with God, and we have to start doing the right things. We have to be more intentional with our actions, and we have to start focusing on building the future for our kids, for our grandchildren, and future generations. There's no one else to do it. It has to be us.
It has to be us.
For those who like to read and research Chaldeic literature. Oh, for those who like to read and research Chaldeic literature, it's really time to research. I know in the Middle East there are many Arab texts and books that everyone's been ignoring. It's time to find a way to get into those libraries and read that history. These people weren't writing fairy tales, they were writing about everyday events and everyday life. Sumerians, the same thing. The Phoenicians, the same thing. They weren't storytellers. They were writing about everyday life, and a lot of that had to do with our interaction with extraterrestrial races that were here. We need this knowledge. We need to know what humanity of old knew and how it interacted with these other races. That's what's been stolen from us as well, is that knowledge. There are a lot of things that we can learn without making any more mistakes. The biggest thing we can learn is what worked and what didn't by reading those histories. So we don't have to start all over and make the same mistakes, because they're impressive. They're incredibly impressive beings. That doesn't mean we're any less impressive. It doesn't mean we cow down. It doesn't mean we worship. It doesn't mean we bend over. We have to see ourselves as equals. We may not be as intelligent as the galactics, as physically healthy and strong, or knowledgeable or spiritual as they may be, or as connected to Source as they may be. But that doesn't mean we're any less. It just means we have survived a horrible ordeal where there is a collective group literally wanting to destroy us. We have to acknowledge that. And as we move to the table, as we begin to interact, we have to have that strength that we have survived this incredible ordeal and we've come through it. And having that knowledge and having that strength, we dedicate ourselves to moving to the next level, to evolving, to ascending in all ways to higher ground, and taking our civilization with us. We're there. We're there.
We're there,
He says. And everybody has to be a part of this. Doesn't matter where you are, energy flows where your focus goes. What is it that you want? It can't be all the stuff. So how are we going to change it? And it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with each one of us individually. We have to keep reminding ourselves of this, that what we're seeing playing out in front of us is a movie. But when the credits are run and the movie's over, we can't leave the theater. We cannot leave the theater, okay? Because the planet's the theater. We have to take the lessons learned and we have to rebuild our home, our planet. We have this magnificent technology, but we forgot to grow spiritually in order to responsibly use this technology, to be truly comfortable with this technology. And being forefathers and foremothers, we have got to integrate this technology and ourselves with future generations. We are laying the groundwork for this jump, for all of humanity. He says, they used to say the greatest generation was those from World War II. He says they were great. All over the world, they were great. But we're going to be great too. We're going to be great too. And we have to be. We have to be. There's a lot of negativity being spread. Listen to your gut. Listen. Listen to your gut. The financial system is going to change. It has to. It represents something very, very dark. The intention was dark. What it accumulated to and what it became was dark. What it did was dark. The destruction and the wake of everything that it represented was dark. It's been a disaster. Do not be afraid of change. We should be embracing it. We have to. It can only be better, especially if we're managing the changes. And how it changes is you get directly involved and you don't let anyone mute your voice. Absolutely. No one silences humanity anymore. No one. And if they try to, they should be gone. So apparently, yeah, the banks are going to be more like financial advisors, from what I've heard. We're going to have control of our money. They won't be able to just go into your account and charge you all these fees and all this crap. Okay. They can't touch it. They can give us financial advice, but they're not going to be able to touch our money. So that will be really interesting, huh? He says, just a couple of notes. Tomorrow, Elena Denan has her first webinar, www.elenadenan.org/webinars. It's her very first one, and I would like to ask all of you if you can support her. I'm sure it's going to be great. She's one of the founding mothers now, forefathers, foremothers, as all of you are. And for any of you who are transgender, well, you're both. He says, I guess founding fathers and mothers. He says, okay, just help. Just help. That's what we need to do, is we need to help. We need to step up and move forward. And also, if you know people who are new, who are just waking up, there's many good books. Dr. Sala's books, Denan, Wallace, and Winter. There are many very, very good books that they could start with. Someone sent this to me. I read it. It's a wonderful introduction to all these things, and it's by Barbara Stone, PhD. And Barbara, I know we haven't had a chance to actually get together. That's on me. But you wrote this incredible book called Star Civilizations 101. If you know new people who just have no clue and are overwhelmed, have them get this book. It's really, really good, and it's first, second, and third grade, okay? You guys are all in college here on this webinar. You're in the master's program, but not everybody is there, and we have to be patient to get them up to speed. Then they will get 4 or 5 others up to speed. This has got to be an organic awakening of humanity. And we have to keep fostering it to make it real, for it to take hold, okay? And when they realize how full of shit the media is and has been, they're going to need your support. They're going to need your input, okay? And I've said that in the past too in my other videos. Like, some of us have been awakened our whole lives. Some of us have been awakened for 20, 25, 30 years. You know, and we've known all this stuff and we've been waiting so long, so long for this to happen finally. And so we're at this point and we're just like, oh, we want to hurry up and speed it up. And then you're like seeing all these people finally awakening and they're just so overwhelmed, and I feel so bad. I feel so bad for them. So we have to continue to be there to support them, and be that strong pillar for them to lean on, because they're gonna need it. They're gonna need it, guys. They're gonna need it. We have to be there for them. He says, okay, I know there's something I'm forgetting, but at the moment I just can't remember what it is. I hope this was worthwhile, folks. So now we'll get into the questions. And the first question is, back in December, you mentioned the failing banks would start to fall, probably after the new year. Can you bring us up to speed on the status of the banks? Thank you. Alex responds, well, geez, Ken, there are branches closing everywhere. Bank of America is in bankruptcy. JP Morgan Chase is in bankruptcy. Wells Fargo is in bankruptcy. Citibank is in bankruptcy. The derivative market is $2 quadrillion in bankruptcy, and the whole thing is a shitstorm all across the planet. The Bank of Switzerland, Central Bank of Switzerland, just lost more money in the last 10 months than in their entire 104-year history. He says, and in Switzerland is the gold. That's where all the big fish are, the whales, the megalodons. And he says, that's where all the megalodons are in Switzerland, and they're losing their ass. So Wells Fargo was the largest mortgage broker in the United States, and they just shut down their entire mortgage division. It's gone. It's done. Yeah, that ought to tell you something. We had 2 Wells Fargo banks in our town, and the one up the hill, they closed that branch. Closed it. They closed it pretty quickly too. They're gone. I'm surprised they're still open on the other one. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, so we'll see more close probably. Next question. So much of our history has been hidden from us. Can you explain how Tartaria might have existed without our knowing it, as architecture still exists in plain sight? How was it hidden? Then Alex says they just wouldn't address it. They refused to address it. They just pretended like it didn't exist, and whatever evidence they had, such as giants, the Smithsonian, or other governments. God, I hate Smithsonian. I used to have a subscription to them because I used to like their articles and stuff. And then, gosh, this was probably 20 years ago. And I found out that a lot of the CEOs and the higher ups were doing trophy hunting in Africa. And they were killing lions and zebras and all that stuff. And, oh, it pissed me off so bad because I don't believe in trophy hunting. And I wrote him a nasty letter, and I said, how in the world can you guys put these things in your museums, and you're just, you're trophy hunting, this is horrible. And I canceled my subscription. So yeah, they're awful, Smithsonian says. And other governments that were involved directly would make sure we would never see any of that. Says, I mean, where's the best place to hide something? It's usually right in front of you because you will not see it and you're not paying attention, and then you distract them with other things such as wars, pestilence, famines, sports of all kinds of things, and just keep distracting them. And eventually they're like, well, I guess it doesn't matter, and you forget about it and you just move on, even though the structures are there. You have to remember that the masterminds of putting this matrix together were not humans. They were extraterrestrial. They knew that what they were doing. The human component was for us to interact with the human element so that we would never know about the ET component in the background. We were never meant to know about this, okay? There's so many lectures out there and so many books that talk about this. This is why I mentioned earlier about the Chaldeans. Chaldean literature, they talked about the Tartarians all the time, apparently. They do. But we're told it's all mythology. No, it's not. It's not mythology at all. It deserves another look by as many people as possible, because that's history. That's true history. You know how much work it takes to draw on a clay tablet, to chisel it, to put it all on the mark, to put all the markings on it, I guess, is what he was saying. See, I can't read my writing. Sorry, guys. He says, and they're saying that they could write novels on them. He says, come on, seriously, no. They were writing about real life. Next question. A critical mass of humans can help get rid of Earth's evil adrenochrome drinking shits by manifesting the world without them in it. Our humanity has been invaded and kept in the dark by both sides. Alex, please ask the A's and the White Hats for full disclosure. It seems like both sides are battling for control at the moment. Who decides humanity can't handle the truth? None the wise, full disclosure now. Who decides how humanity can't handle the truth? And Alex says, I don't know that the issue uh, about that issue, and there are other star nations that are represented here as well. I don't know that. And I found this really interesting how he explains it, and I think he's exactly right. Like, we want it to happen and we want disclosure, but he's right. And he says humanity, it's not that humanity can't handle the truth. There certainly is a certain percentage that can. It's managing the trauma. It is managing the trauma that a significant portion of the population will experience if they were to just blurt out everything all at once. We would create trauma. Just the child issue alone would be enough to do that, because it's far worse than anyone knows. It is. It's just like when you explain something to your children, you are very careful the words you use, and you're extremely responsible in the way you lay it out to them. And sometimes you give them a little bit, and then a little bit more later on, and then a little bit more later on, so that they can absorb the information you've given them. Ask questions, and then you give them a little bit more, so they can grasp the concepts and the ideas that you've been presenting to them. This is no different. Says it's no different. In many respects, compared to these other civilizations, we are children to them because we're only awakening up now. So they're going to be responsible in how they give us the information, and everybody will be on the same page with this. Whatever they're going to do and however they're going to do it is only for the highest good, so that we can continue to evolve. We have to have time to be able to process some information, like the monetary system. That's the one thing. The ecosystem, that's another. The experimentation on the human genome, that's another. The children thing, he says, man, he says, that hits everybody. That hits the planet at the root of all that we are. They're going to be responsible for how they lay that out. Absolutely. Right? You got to think about that. Question: do off-worlders also have pets living with them, same as here in third dimension? That was going to be one of my questions. And if yes, what type of pets? And he says, well, my only experience is with the A's, and they have wildlife, and they all interact, but they're not treated like pets, basically like we do with ours. So I would think that some do in fact have pets, but Elena has met more different star nations than I have. I've just met with the one, so maybe that's a question for her tomorrow on her webinar. But it wouldn't surprise me that some star nations do have pets. But the A's, I've not seen that. I've not seen that with them. It may on the actual home worlds, physical worlds, they do that, but maybe on the starships they don't, because of logistical issues with the animals. So that's the only way I know how to answer that question. And I don't remember who I was listening to when they explained that, like, higher dimensions, they don't have ownership, really, of anything. Everything's like community. So they don't really own pets. Like, all the animals kind of just go to certain people, I guess, that they're drawn to or whatever. So there is no ownership, and of course there's no zoos, and you know wildlife and humans interact. What more can you? That's heaven to me. I love animals, so that would be great. Next question. In your recent posted interview with James Rink, you mentioned a planetoid collision that wiped out Mars' atmosphere and that it was caused by Nibiru. Can you provide more details on what happened and who was in command of Nibiru during that event? Was it Inky or Enlil? Thank you for sharing and all that you do. I heard from someone, Nibiru actually wasn't just the planet. I heard actually Nibiru is the whole planet system, because there's like 7, 8, or 9. There's like 7. I want to say there's 7 other planets that travel with the main planet, and I heard it's actually called the Nibiru system. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out that too. He says, I don't know. He says, I do not have that information. I simply don't have that information. And it wasn't actually a physical collision, but a plasma arc was created, an electrical arc of plasma, and it grounded itself as Persepolis or Nibiru moved through the system. It grounded itself, the dark star, to Mars, because that was the closest planet to it. So it would be like taking a lightning bolt the size of something we could never imagine and having it ground itself to a planet. And it would stay grounded on that planet until the star moved away and it broke the ground. But while it's grounded, Mars is still moving. So that would have wreaked havoc on any planet's atmosphere. There you go. That's it in a nutshell. Next question, is there any more definition yet whether current technologies will remain functional as our Earth ascends, and how does this relate to new technologies such as ballistic beds and all the computer satellites and infrastructure into implementing the quantum financial system? And Alex says, okay, regarding technology, the biggest, best, and most advanced technology every single one of us has is our DNA. It's our DNA. When you move into fourth, you're not taking your Corvette with you. It's a completely different frequency, okay? You won't be taking your cell phone. Your Xbox will not be going with you, okay? You won't need any of that shit because what you'll recognize is it's just a distraction, and it has been. The best technology you have is your DNA. That's what we all need to work on to repair so we can make the jumps. That's all you need is a healthy, vibrating, turned on DNA. It's all you need. Everything else outside of you can be replaced. You don't need any of it. You don't need any of it. And I've heard that before, that as you go into higher dimensions, you don't need technology. You are the technology. You won't need ships. Some people, I'm sure some beings still like to travel in ships. Sure, it's like a road trip. We want to get in the car and do a road trip. So they're like, let's jump in the spaceship and we'll do a road trip. But us as bodies, we'll just be able to instantly think of where we want to go and we're there. That's what it's going to be awesome. I just can't wait. I can't wait. I know I've been there before. That's how I know it. We'll get there. Let's see. Next question. Lots of reports out now about replicators coming out around April 23rd or later. Have you heard of any updates? He says, I know they're real. He says, I know they're real. And there are some that actually work and people are looking to put money together to fund the replicators, to manufacture them. So yes, they are real. And people are trying very, very hard to make these things happen, but we're still in a system that is dark and needs some cleaning up as far as the monetary system. So there are companies that have this technology. It's just that it costs a significant amount of money to manufacture this stuff. Next question. What is the most optimal sleeping positions for humans? Metal or wood bed frames, the positions, sleeping material, and how do the A's sleep? And do they sleep? I saw a video going around Telegram. I don't know what the man's name was, but he was discussing how the best way to sleep and get the best night's sleep was to face your bed, like the head of your bed and your head facing north and your feet facing south. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do that. My bed, so my front door faces east. That's the only reason I loved this house too when we bought it. I was like, yes, my front door is facing east. Just like a lot of indigenous cultures, when they would set up their teepees, their door to it was always east facing, so that when the sun rises, at their door. But yeah, my bed is north and south. But he says, what he tried to explain, like how the gravity, if your head is north and your feet are south, somehow the gravity pulls on all your cells of your body, and it's supposed to be healthier and it's supposed to make you sleep better. So I thought that was interesting. But Alex says, I have never seen them sleep. I have never been into their bedroom chambers. I have seen the quarters on Mornay's craft, and they do have platforms. But my understanding is that when they lay down on those platforms, they hover. He says they don't actually lay on the platform, they hover above it. So there's an anti-gravity quality to it. But I've never seen their crew in that position, so that's all I know. Next question. Once in 5D, will our body be changing from carbon to crystal base? If yes, how would our cells scientifically look under a microscope? And he says, excellent question. I do not know. And people have this concept of crystal. He says it is more of a liquid crystal plasma physicality. It's not as solid. He says it's different. There's a very different physicality to it, but it has a frequency like nothing I can even describe down here. Just standing next to Mornay or his crew, or even Visayas before he crossed, it's just frequency. Once you recognize it, you never forget it. He says, see, that's the issue with language here in third density. It's so limited. I don't know how to explain a lot of things. That's one of the things. How do you explain someone who vibrates at a frequency 2 dimensions above us and have it relate to here on Earth? I don't know how to do that. He says, maybe this way. If you remember the first time you were in love and you knew it, your entire body just lit up like the sun, like a star, and you felt like you could float on air. Now multiply that by at least 10 times, and maybe that's what it's like standing next to some of these guys. I think sometimes when they're down here, boots on the ground, they dial it down so that it's not so obvious, but they dial it down. And I see the wisdom in that too, the dialing it down, because Earth is still, there's still a lot of hostility here. He says, I met a woman once who dialed it down, and I know she did. But to this day, even though she dialed it down, I would still recognize her energy. And I felt it before she approached me, and I felt it even though I was engaged with other people at the time. And there were no words spoken. It was just presence. It was just presence, and it was impressive. It was very, very impressive. And I wish that for everybody, so that you would know and you would feel the difference. And then you would know what we're all striving for in raising our own frequency. It would give you that example, that physical example of what we can be on a frequency level. He says, stay grounded, folks, stay grounded. Understand that a lot of what we're seeing is theater, and it isn't directed specifically at humanity as it is to the sleepers. Understand there's going to be changes in the financial system. It's a foregone conclusion. It absolutely needs to happen anyway. Just go with it. The flow. Go with the flow. There's no reason to freak out or panic. If you haven't filled your pantry, now would be the time to do it. If you haven't gotten any silver or have excess cash at home, now's the time to do it. There's a lot of indication that shifts are going to start happening. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others around you who are just waking up. You've been there, okay? We know what it's like to wake up, to finally see things as they really are. It can be shocking, okay? And support Elena in her webinar tomorrow if you can do so. I'm sure it's going to be fabulous. It says, ladies and gentlemen, those who sent a donation, thank you. If I have an address, you'll be getting a personal card. Thank you all so much for attending and supporting our little webinar. Again, if you know people, this is a wonderful read, Star Civilization 101 by Barbara Stone. Okay, it's great. Thank you guys. Take care. I love you all. See you next week. Okay. Lots of information, lots of things I learned too as well. So, oh my goodness. Sometimes, like I said, guys, I have to constantly tell myself, I tell myself every day to calm down, take a step back, and just breathe. And I have to go ground myself. I just have to. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Hopefully we can get more people to watch. Yeah, I don't sell anything. I don't make any money off of this. Go and support Alex at alexcollier.org, and support him and JP and James. And go to brighteon.com. Every Friday he does webinars and question and answers. And those are the ones that cost like $4.99. I think no, I think those are the replays are the $4.99. I think it might be $12.99 to get in on the live ones. But yeah, go support him. I do have a PayPal account. If you want to donate to me, you can. I don't ask for anything though. But thank you so much to my new subscribers. I really do appreciate it. If you found me for a reason. So I'm just grateful I get to give this information and have this platform to share it all with you. So I hope all of you take care. Yes, try and stay grounded. Get out in nature, put your feet in the ground, take a nice bubble bath, something. Get in the water. You know, water's really great and calming. Pet your animals. Just love on them. You know, sit outside and watch the stars. That's very grounding as well. I appreciate all of you. I love all of you, my soul family. Thank you so much. And just continue to be that lighthouse and shine your light so that we can bring all these lost ships at sea back home. Okay. So I love all of you. I will be working on my next webinar, which is from February 10th. From Alex, which is his number 176. I'm not sure I will get a video out next week. Like I said, I am working up to 40 hours a week now. Hopefully, after some things get resolved, I can go back to just 4 days a week. And hopefully soon I'll be having a new opportunity for a new job. We'll see. Anyway, I love all of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you, and I love you, and I wish I could give you all a great big hug because I know we all need it. We all need it right now. We all need to support each other. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.